Welcome to the Get Cyber Resilient podcast. I'm Gar O'Hara. Today I'm speaking to Shemaine Tan, the author of Cyber Risk Leaders, creator of the very successful Cyber Risk Meetups, and also exec advisor for Privacy. Shemaine is definitely doing great things in and for our industry. We recorded this interview last year in a glass-walled conference room, as you're going to hear, when we were lucky enough to find a spare 60 minutes in Shemaine's calendar. So it's definitely taken us a little bit of time to get this one out. And when Shemaine reviewed the episode again last week, she actually spotted that she mentions 120 MITRE attack techniques and that it's actually now over 170. So you know somebody is the real deal when they notice something like that, in my opinion. And also how quickly things change. The Cyber Risk Meetup, which Shemaine runs, has an official website. That's cyberriskmeetup.com. That has been going in Australia and Singapore for some time, but actually now has launched in Japan, Tokyo, and it's going really strongly over there. The meetups are also virtual, so there's quite a few things to talk about. For example, the Mega C-Suite series that Shemaine is running. That has its own YouTube channel, and that's going to be included in the show notes. And then lastly, the book, Cyber Risk Leaders, is on Amazon and Kindle, and it's also available at My Security Marketplace. For folks in Asia, they can grab the hard copy of Cyber Risk Leaders in their local Kinokuniya bookshop at Times and any really popular bookstores over there. So please enjoy the episode. Today, I'm sitting with somebody who may be the busiest person in cybersecurity. Every day, I see an update from a meeting or a conference or an event where this person speaks or moderates panels. Amazingly, she's also found time to serve as the executive advisor for Privacy in the Asia Pacific region. And if that wasn't enough, she's also spent years authoring a book called Cyber Risk Leaders. And that's a collection of insights from the C-suite and walks the reader through leadership and influence in the cyber age. So welcome, Shemaine Tan.
Hi, thanks for having me here.
You're most welcome. It's great to see you. So look, you're a successful author. You run a really popular Cyber Risk Meetup, and you also work as the APAC Executive Advisor for Privacy. So I'm guessing this must be meaningful work for you?
Yeah, definitely. So something I really enjoy and passionate about. So I don't really see it as a job, but something that I do every day, including the weekends.
So you would do it for free.
Oh, I do need something to pay the bill, so yes.
So how did you get to where you are today? Like, what was the path to get to be so successful and to do so much?
I think it's a journey, I would say. And I started out actually not being in the cybersecurity industry.
Okay.
So I started out in IT, and then I found myself just working really closely with the head of ITs, some C-suite level, but really in terms of building up their team. And I was more focused on the people aspect. And then somehow I just found myself really intrigued in the cybersecurity industry. I actually was part of one of the meetings at AWSN, which is the Australian Women in Security Network.
Okay.
And that was really interesting, where you see a lot of different people coming in from different backgrounds, and got really encouraged to give it a shot myself. And Privacy was one of my clients in the past, and they've been asking me to do the jump, which I did. And that's how I ended up in the cybersecurity industry.
That's awesome. And what was the biggest challenge, or maybe some of the biggest challenges that you sort of faced along the way? I'm guessing that wasn't an easy jump to make.
Yes, it's a whole different ball game because there's so much to learn. You never stop learning. Even the CISOs themselves are always finding it hard to play catch up, right? You can never catch up. So I would say the biggest challenge is learning how to prioritize on what are the key things that I can be able to partner together with the different CISOs that I work with and really help them bridge their business gaps effectively.
Yep. And that is a big challenge, I think, for everyone these days. So that, like, you've had an incredible journey. You've done all this stuff.
Yeah.
What do you, when you look back at all that you've done, and it's a lot, I do wonder sometimes when I see your LinkedIn posts, like, do you ever sleep? Because it just seems like there's no way a human being could do as much as you do.
Okay.
But when you look back at it all, at a personal level, maybe, like, what do you feel most proud about?
I think I just feel like I'm in a really good position where I'm learning a lot from different people that I'm speaking to. The CISOs are actually seeing me as a partner where they are sharing confidential information and looking to me to help add value in some way or another. And I feel like it's an honor to be able to do that and be a trusted advisor. So for me, what really keeps me fulfilled and why I keep doing what I do, because I feel it's meaningful, where I want to be able to be that bridge and help bring the different expertise and the different learning experiences that these industry leaders that have gone ahead of me, that they've learned, and how can I bring that and to even the next generation, of people coming into this industry. How can I bridge that, help them learn from the lessons learned before so that they don't have to go through the long, painful journey of getting there. So that's why I'm motivated to do what I do and help bring that together.
Awesome. And that almost leads perfectly into Cyber Risk Meetups. So you founded that back in Sydney, actually, in 2017.
Yeah.
And they've grown now. You've got actually Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and Perth are cities that you're running those in, and thousands of members.
And Singapore as well.
In Singapore, sorry.
Yeah.
Singapore also. What do you think has made those meetups so popular? Because there are other ones, but yours are particularly popular.
I think it's a combination of different factors. So the reason how these meetups all came about in the first place was driven by a desire to learn from different people that you don't usually see on the platform. So that was how it started, where I wanted to make it as diverse as possible. I've been reaching out to people that are not the usual ones that you see as speakers on conferences. So in a way, it gives them an opportunity and platform to share their experience. And the difference is that the meetup is not an official association, right? So they don't feel pressured because they're not representing their organization. They don't have to go through all the different hoops to get approval. They know that they're in a safe place, and the culture that has been built is such that they're just there to share what they have learned. And people learn best when you're being real about your challenges, your mistakes, rather than saying things that media wants to hear, and the politically correct answers and things like that. Yeah, so that's how it's grown actually. And there's been also really interesting formats. So we try to do TED Talk style or debates. There was once we had a panel, and I had different C-level. So I had the CIO, CRO, CISO, and then coming together, and they were debating on, who should a CISO report into. So that was quite interesting, hearing different perspectives. So things like that.
I'm sure that would have been slightly heated.
Yeah.
There are CISOs I've talked to where if they have to report to a CFO, they won't take the job. Go to CEO reporting or not at all?
It depends on the organization as well, and the leadership, and also the culture. So it can't be something that's you apply across every organization. You have to go down deeper into that. But it's really, really interesting. You do see a lot of interesting perspectives that come out from this. So another thing to add as well, the meetups are not done every day or every month. It's actually every quarter. So that does keep it fresh and something that everybody looks forward to.
I think it's a really good idea, because I do feel like sometimes those kind of things happen just because they're supposed to happen. And to your point, they can feel less fresh. So has there been any particularly memorable speakers or any sessions that really stand out in your mind over the last 2 years?
I'm just thinking, because there were a lot of favorite ones. And they've been quite different. So from, quantifying risk, how do you put a dollar value to risk, which is really interesting, to something very different like DevSecOps to artificial intelligence. I mean, it's not just saying the buzzword, but we try to put a different spin to the common topics that people talk about. I would say that my favorite one would probably be the two panel debate. So one was like what I mentioned, the different C-level reporting. How does that work for different organizations? That was quite unique, I would say. And then another one where we had a very diverse panel talking about how from people from different backgrounds, could be gender, race, even skill background, coming in the industry, and how have they seen them be effective and grow in the industry itself. And then this is it was interesting because I've got like I think I remember there was a COO from Safety Culture that was there sharing her experience in a tech and innovative company and her perspective on security from that point of view. There's someone who wasn't in the industry. I think he was a lawyer, a law partner, talking. So it was really a different mix. So I think it was things like that stood out. Yeah, and that was very interactive as well because we had the audience just standing up to their feet and challenging the panel, and so yeah, that was quite memorable.
And it's incredible that you've created an environment where that is okay to do, where you can have different opinions and everyone learns and grows from that. So yeah, phenomenal that you've done that. So your air quotes job is as the executive advisor for Privasec.
Oh, right, my real job, yes.
For those listening, what does Privasec do? What's the organization do?
Yeah, so we are an independent consulting firm. We actually started out in Australia, and then we grew, and we're now in Southeast Asia. So we're in Singapore and in Malaysia as well. But we focus in two main divisions, governance, risk, and compliance. So that's where we do a lot of ISO 27001 work, PCI DSS, IRAP assessments, cloud security assessments, things like that. We also are very well known in the tech assurance space. So that's where we do pen testing, red teaming, more recently purple teaming. And another niche area would be drone security. So that's where we do drones, hardening, forensics. Yeah, that's a whole different ball game. Is fascinating.
Well, that's like bleeding edge security stuff.
And not many people are doing that. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So given you've done so many different services for organizations when they look at things like pen testing, red teaming, what are the benefits that you would see falling out of those if they go to an organization like Privasec to use those services?
So it depends on the different levels of maturity of the organizations as well. So for example, if a company is not matured at all and they don't even have anything basics, we wouldn't recommend red teaming because it's we'll definitely get in. And if you look at all the past case studies as well, I think it's actually been about 100% successful rates of breaking into organizations using different techniques, from social engineering, OSINT to physical intrusion as well. So I think we will make sure something that's more, recommend something that's more value added for the company. So it could be, for instance, they just want to start off with the basics first, and then we would help out with a security health check to assess where they are at, do a pen test for them. But for companies that are more mature, then we'll partner together to do red teaming. But what we have found is that purple teaming is actually probably more value added because you're familiar with the MITRE attack and all.
So can you run us, I'm definitely familiar with the MITRE attack framework. Can you run for the listeners though, can you run us through purple teaming and what that means?
Yeah, sure. So to put it in really simple layman terms, then what it does is that we sit down with their defense team, and then we actually instigate an attack itself, and then we will be showing them, hey, are you able to see this is happening right now as we speak? How are you detecting it? What you're doing with it? So it's really actually knowledge transfer as well, because we're equipping the defense team to in a real life scenario that this is ongoing, it's live right now, and then we train them on what they need to do on the different techniques. There's about I think more than 120 MITRE attack techniques these days, and then we walk them through the different Q chain, and so in a way it's we leave them with a higher level of maturity and ability to deal with incidents.
That sounds like a really useful approach, rather than doing a red teaming, winning, and then nobody really learns anything from that.
Exactly.
Definitely see that's awesome. And in terms of the certification side of things that you sort of ran through there, do you see the alignment to those kind of well-recognized certifications? So you mentioned things like ISO, IRAP, locally here in Australia, aligning to those certifications, but then also being assessed by kind of expert third-party organizations like Privasec. Is that becoming more critical, do you think, for businesses to stay competitive and resilient?
Yes, I would say that I've seen the shift where there is a lot of less mature companies realizing now they need to be compliant, and they have actually that has helped trigger a desire for them to try to align themselves to certain certifications, to get a foot in the door with certain businesses as well. That is a good starting point where they can get more security aware people coming in, right? But what the misconception is that being compliant doesn't mean you're secure. So that's something that people have to also be mindful of. It has helped though, like speaking to so many people, it's a common frustration for them because they are saying the same things to their company and the board, and they are telling them you need to do this, but the board is not really listening to internal people, and then they have to get a third party to come in. They pay a lot of money to an independent assessor who comes in and tell them the exact same thing.
Yep.
And then the board buys into that. But that's how it works, human nature.
That is, it's amazing, isn't it? The third-party experts, how much weight that carries, and definitely an important thing. And speaking of third-party experts, so obviously you've written the book, Cyber Risk Leaders, so congratulations again on that.
Thank you.
How does it feel like after so much work, right? It took many, many years, and how many interviews? Like a lot, right?
I think I counted actually. There was about 70, like more than 70 different C-level people that I've spoken to around the world.
Yep.
I could only name 30 of them in the book.
Yep.
Yeah, because some of it's really confidential, and it's a mix of like the ex-FBIs, the ex-Navy SEALs, to government CISOs, to critical infrastructure, to, so it's a really, really broad spectrum. But it's been fascinating, like getting to their minds and their heads and just trying to extract out different perspectives and put them into a book. Yeah, it's also a bit confusing because there's so many voices.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day is, trying to figure out what's going to be most relevant to people. But the readers will have to, sift through and find out what's applicable to their own world and their own industry and apply that accordingly. Yeah.
But what a phenomenal resource for them to be able to shortcut years of work on your part, to be able to have a book that they can go to and then go straight to the important parts for their particular industry.
And actually, just speaking on that, that's one reason why the CISOs themselves are so willing to spend the time and really give back as well, because they are mindful of leaving their legacy, but also they're mindful of the next generation coming up. So that was something that really stood out throughout the entire experience.
It's an amazing industry to me, given that it is security, how much there is this spirit of collaboration and working together.
Exactly.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's the common theme in the conversations I've had doing these.
Yes.
It's people every single time.
Yes.
It's protecting a grandmother, it's protecting an organization, it's working together to do security well.
Yeah.
So obviously, you spoke to a lot of people when you were doing the book, and obviously you can't name those people, but was there any standout interviews that you remember where something really spoke to you or kind of stood out from an interview perspective?
I think I remember the main theme while writing the book is keeps coming to me, right? It's wow, we have a lot of exceptional people in this industry. They're all really good, really they have different experience, but they have so much to give back. That's what that really stood out. So I can't really name a favorite because their stories are also individual and so unique.
Yep.
What I can share maybe that comes to mind is a recent conversation that I had with Steve Katz. So he's known as the world's first CISO, and I actually wrote a LinkedIn article, a little bit of a snippet about what we talked about, because it's going to come out in the second print of the Cyber Risk Leaders.
Awesome.
But what's incredible is he took on the role of the CISO in 1994. So that was, in Australia, we're seeing the CISO role becoming really popular these days. It's appearing on LinkedIn at such a rapid rate. But it's only come on, I think about 10 years, this title. But Steve actually held that title, in 1994. And he had to deal with the first hack for Citicorp back then, and that was when Russia hacked into the bank. And when you don't have a previous example of a breach and you don't really know how to deal with it, where do you start?
It's all new, right? Figuring it out as you go.
And for him, what was really key was really recognizing that even back in the days, that cybersecurity is actually a business risk. And I was quite surprised to hear him tell me that he was already talking to the board about it being a business risk. How do you align your conversation about cyber risk in the perspective of how the organization as a whole manage risk? And it really brought to mind that, hey, we're talking about it now a lot more, only the last few years itself. and it's funny because he has been talking about it in the US, in New York, like ages ago. So I think it really brought to mind something someone said as well about how we always talk about learning lessons, right? But maybe are we really applying the lessons if we're talking about the same thing many years later on?
Yep.
And maybe it's just lessons identified, but not lessons learned yet. Yeah.
Yep.
So food for thought.
Yeah, most definitely. I think we're just about running out of time. There's probably a couple more, just kind of short questions, but like, what did you take out of the process of writing the book? Like, what was it from a personal perspective? I'm guessing you would have learned a lot outside of security.
So from a personal perspective, I would say it takes a lot of discipline to write a book. So there were many times that I really wanted to give up because you're talking about spending time after work, your weekends, late in the evening, just trying to consolidate different thoughts and perspective and make sense of it. And at the same time also add in your own voice and just put everything together. So there are moments where I really enjoy it so much that I couldn't stop. Before I knew it, it was so late in the morning already and I have to go to work. But there are moments where, you just don't want to look at it for a while and you just want to leave it there. So what kept me going really is, I guess, wanting to see that finished product being in the hands of people where they can learn and just grow from it. And it has been very rewarding when I've even had students who are in the industry and they've told me they've gotten a copy of the book. Some of them have borrowed it from the library. It's in the library in Australia and in Singapore as well, National Library over there. And they said that it has really helped them given a perspective of what it's like in the real world out there, in the corporate world, and it's going to equip them when they go out there and they know what to look out for. And I guess it's things like that that really makes it very fulfilling. Yeah. And even like people who are in the new in the industry, they're considering joining the cybersecurity industry. That's one thing as well that has come up where they found it really helpful. And that was something that I guess is a bonus because when I first started writing the book, it was really just I've been speaking to even like new CISOs or aspiring CISOs and they want to learn from their peers or even experienced CISOs who want to learn from each other, but they just don't have that bandwidth to do that. So that was the original intention, to bring it together to help the security leaders do their job better. But yeah, it's a pleasant surprise to find that it's just touching everyone on different aspects.
Yeah, that's great. And it sounds like such a good shortcut, to consolidate all of that knowledge into one place. I mean, phenomenal thing to do. So you sort of hinted at it. We can expect another book, part 2, or?
So, well, more of like a second print for now, where I have a few editions that has come out that actually one of it is really exciting. One of the US ex-president, his CISO, I've actually sat down with him for like 1.5 hours.
Wow.
And like the things that he has shared for the second print of the book is really, really interesting. So
phenomenal.
That's a work
good
in
teaser.
Progress. I know, and actually you are the first that I'm sharing that with. So
we've got breaking news.
Yeah,
this is
that's true.
exciting.
That's something that's
phenomenal.
fun. Yeah. So yeah, watch this space.
Will do. And so where can you buy the current edition, or is it on sale?
Oh, right. So it's currently on Amazon, and I think it's on Amazon and Kindle, Google Play Books as well. If you want to get, if you're in Australia, or actually if you're around the world, you can get a hard copy through My Security Marketplace. Yeah, and just search for Cyber Risk Leaders, and it will come up.
Perfect. Too easy. And then the Cyber Risk meetups, how do people get involved?
Yeah, so just go to cyberriskmeetup.com.
Too easy.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we've pretty much run out of time, Shane. So really, again, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today.
Oh, I really enjoyed
it's been a
myself,
pleasure.
actually. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there you go. Thanks again to Shemaine for taking the time out to talk to us. And please do check the show notes for details on how to get involved in Shemaine's Cyber Risk Meetup and also where to find her book, Cyber Risk Leaders. As always, thanks for listening, and I look forward to catching you on the next episode of the Get Cyber Resilient podcast.